Thank you. All right, well, welcome everybody. We're here with Lior, Karen with Miracle Devs, and Nico, and we're super excited to put this workshop together. So my name is Monica Rojas. I work with Tech Hub South Florida, and today's lunch and learn topic is defining a product roadmap after MVP development. And Nico here is actually joining us from Argentina. So we have an international crowd, and we're super excited to see the wisdom that he will provide to Lior, who's one of our startup founders.
It might also be the other way around.
Both ways. That'd be awesome.
All right, so I'm really excited about this slide. So if you guys are familiar with Tech Hub, our mission statement before was to build South Florida into a tech hub. But as you may know, like South Florida is booming. So we actually changed our mission statement about a week or two ago, and it's now building South Florida's tech hub, because we're no longer building it, but we're making it bigger. So we're super excited about that. That was a huge win from our side as a team. All right, so this is our community creed. We really try to be an inclusive community for all. People first. How can we help our community? How can we help each other? And we really try to limit selling to each other rather we promote collaborating. And if you have any questions, feel free to go onto techhubsouthflorida.org and walk through what we have going on there as well. All right, so I actually have to change our mission statement here, but we are building South Florida's Tech Hub, and we are a nonprofit that is 501c6, and we're membership driven. So we have about 200 corporate members. Miracle Devs is one of them, and we're spread out throughout all of South Florida. And that includes Martin County, Palm Beach County, Broward County, and even Miami-Dade County. So our focus really is to foster a community of technology, innovation, creativity, and of course, startup activity. All right, so these are just a few of our current members, if you haven't seen already on our website. Really, anyone could be a member as long as you have technology involved in your company. And a few of our big companies here are Office Depot, UKG, PGA, and then we also have small companies, for example, like Boca Code, that's a startup. Who else here is a little bit smaller? Premier Virtual, they're a startup that's actually growing right now. So we have a little bit of everything. All right, so this is just a few of our membership benefits that I want to share with the group. So we do highlight you guys on our website. We focus on PR, guest posts, speaking opportunities as well, like this one. And then we also have an exclusive membership peer group where we allow like-minded individuals to connect on a monthly basis, bi-monthly basis, and build that community. We also really promote job listings and resume distributions. All right. And we do a lot more. So this was just a really quick overview. So if you have any questions, just email Monica at techhubsouthflorida.org or add me on LinkedIn. All right. So real quick, these are just a few of our weekly events. We have our tech talks that are twice a month, and we're actually doing them in person now. We're doing a hybrid model. So for example, we go from Miami, West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, and even Boca Raton. So if you're across South Florida, you can just pick and choose whichever one would be best for you. We have our alternating Tuesdays, we have community coffees. And they're really just gatherings where we bring different professionals from different industries and talk about best practices and connections and updates. And we also have our podcast series. So you can actually go on to Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and check out all the awesome, innovative people we've highlighted throughout South Florida. And lastly, we have our lunch and learn, which is what we're doing today. These are educational workshops. We do this we're going to do it every other week. And it's a way for our members to kind of just educate each other, work together, and just learn some intro classes. Okay. So yeah, this is just a quick overview on our resume distributor. So if you guys want to go to techhubsouthflorida.org, if you guys are looking for a job or if you're looking to hire, we have a career board, we have the resume distributor, and we also have a Slack channel that's really active with job searching. All right, so I'm going to hand it over to Nico, who is today's speaker, and then you can go ahead and share your screen. And I know you and Lior have something planned, so we're excited for this. Welcome, everybody.
Excellent. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, everyone, for joining. My name is Nico Badano. I'm the CEO of Miracle Devs. I will tell you a bit about the company, about myself, just to get you in tune into what we will be doing today. Let me share my screen for a minute there. So this will work. And then here and there. So basically, we are a software development company. We've been working for the past 10 years. We've taken small and large projects. We've worked with a lot of startups. Actually, we had around 300 projects over the past 10 years and collaborated with a lot of people. We have offices there in the US and here in Argentina. We've been working a lot in the West, and so California and Washington and Texas as well. But we've started to go to Florida last year. We've started to grow our presence in Florida, mostly because it really felt like a place that we could further develop. Like the ecosystem was booming, and things started really to get moving, and it drew our attention, and we're happy with it because what we are seeing in terms of activities is mind-blowing. We've been working in software development, of course, so we do operate something as a software factory in the sense that people ask us for specific projects. But lately, we've been more inclined to product engineering and digital transformation, meaning that we get more involved with clients. And I think that's like the key of this, and this is what we will be working on today, which is the value in development really comes from getting involved with the situation. Like the entire team, both in the development area or section of projects or companies, need to be very connected to the problem itself, stakeholders, clients, founders, etc. So product engineering and digital transformation are two areas that are really interesting, and we've been working a lot of in those lately. Basically, we have four main areas of development. We worked a lot with insurance, both in Florida and California. Insurance, mostly carriers and policy life cycle, a lot of boring stuff, but it is interesting to see how people are rethinking it or adapting it to new means or new technologies. Retail, a lot with the customer experience and building experiences that really connect users with brands. We've been working a lot with oil and gas, and in the oil and gas industry, we've also worked, actually in all of them, we've worked a lot with data, and that's also something that we will be discussing with Leo today. We also have experience in aerospace, especially in the reservations area, and some experience in logistics, finance, agriculture, and health and wellness. To give you an overview of our main tools or areas of expertise, we worked a lot with AI and machine learning. We've helped startups build their neural networks to do machine learning algorithms and analysis of big data stacks. We've worked a lot with IoT too, mostly sensors, SCADA systems, interacting with PLCs, bringing data from the field, and all other edge devices, could be mobile, could be other devices, transporting them over to the cloud, making them available, etc. We've worked with systems integration as well, which sounds boring, but in the practice, it's amazing because we've been finding that companies have this problem where they have a lot of software, but sometimes that software has been like growing for a long time, and either it's different vendors or different brands, and software not usually talks to each other in a good way, and it ends up the companies become fragmented because of this. So enabling ways for in the end data, so the the lifeblood of the company to actually come together and make sense as a connected entity rather than a set of different areas, is something that provides tremendous amount of value. There's data and analytics, which is another area that we have a lot of experience in, and of course industrial applications, because all of this is generally implemented at an industrial level, and product discovery and design, again, which we will be discussing today with Lior. Just very briefly, I can give you an idea of the technical capabilities. I don't always know who am I talking to in terms of how much technical expertise do you guys have. But just to mention that we have DevOps and CI and continuous integration built in the team. That's something that we've been doing a lot lately. We do UI UX design. We work on data pipelines, security of data, both in motion and at rest, and of course architecture and development. So basically, we cover the entire software lifecycle. We've done it for a very long time, and that gives us a lot of insight on what it takes to build software products. Software products are special in the sense that they are mostly air until they actually do something in the world. So basically, you are building a machine made of air, and it takes a lot of effort to making sure that you're actually providing value with what you're doing, and that you're following a good process so that you will end up somewhere that's expected. And with that experience, really is what brought us to this moment where we are increasingly becoming key consultants for our clients, not just in the technology or the development aspect of it, but in the planning, in the strategy part of it, how to actually bring together use cases and problems in the real world with possibilities in the software environment. So we do .NET Core as backend stacks, React, blah, blah, blah. I can share more about that if you're interested. Just to give you a brief overview of what the cycle looks like. We typically have a kickoff. We have analysis, prototype, and design phase, which is what we will be doing with Lior. Then we have development and MVP and testing, deployment, training and change management whenever that's necessary, and support and maintenance. And this is a life cycle of a product engineer, really. But designing a product usually goes through all these steps in one way or another, maybe not in this exact order, but usually involves all these skills and details. What we will be doing with Lior today is discuss the Evonics use case, how the guys over at Evonics are building their solution and thinking together what the next steps would be. They already have something going on in terms of an MVP, so they are already working, but they are finding situations, either expected or unexpected, that force them to rethink the way they are building their software. So the intention is to do some brainstorming together and think about options between the two of us and you, of course. So Lior, maybe you want to give us a bit of background on Evonics?
Yeah, I can jump in.
Can I make you presenter? Just there.
Yeah, I don't really have a slide, but
Perfect.
All good. So my name is Lior Barhai. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Evonics LLC. We're located down here in North Miami, Florida. I've been part of Tech Hub, I think, since December or January. I really find a lot of value in their peer groups, where they do a great job of connecting entrepreneurs, like-minded individuals, and really allowing us to help each other in different areas, and also giving us opportunities like this, to speak with some of the partners, Miracle Devs, and really have them help us, continue our product life cycle. So what Evonics does, it's an agriculture technology company, and we're helping promote a closed loop controlled environment agriculture. So what that is basically, all the inputs going into growing crops gets reused, recaptured, and we can do that through collecting data and developing different action insights for the farmer to run most efficiently. So right now we are a hardware and a software company. Our hardware is collecting the data, different types of sensors throughout the farm, and our software is capturing the data, throwing it up on a cloud portal, being able to display the data and represent that data so the farmer has some actionable insights of what's going on in their farm. So I think today we're going to go over how we can best capture the data and how we can make it useful for the audience it's meant for, so they can actually understand what's happening in the farm.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, absolutely. We already had one conversation before this one where we got a bit more grew more familiar with what the guys over at Evonics are doing, and had like a bit of a conversation to understand the use case, the situation, what they are finding. And in that conversation, data came up as like the main, is that right, Leo? Like one of the main areas of development. Like data was crucial in what you guys were building.
Right, and it's because we're collecting data that growers haven't seen yet. They're not used to seeing this data. So how can we best interpret it and show it to them in a way that's like very easily understandable, and you can see what's going on very quickly. So data is a big focus for us, especially if we're collecting so many different data points every minute.
Yeah, there's one key aspect of what you're bringing up, and it's that data in itself is valuable. It's of course the beginning of it all, but by itself it doesn't add value. Insight needs to be extracted from data before users have actions and can actually drive value from what they are collecting. Actually, we found clients that have this enormous data lakes, like gigantic, but they don't have visibility on what they have. They have data going back years, but they never touched it. They are storing it, sure, because it seems like it's going to be useful someday, but they are not. So what you're bringing up is key, because finding a way of making that data useful from the get-go really adds a lot of value to the service and to the clients in the end.
Right, and especially in our industry. So we're in the agriculture industry. The industry is considered a legacy industry, where generations pass down information and say this is how you should do it because this is how they did it. Right, there's not really that much data collection even in traditional agriculture. So you are filling a gap of here's the data. What can you do with it? Right, the farmer is not going to infer it right away. We have to present those insights and show the trends. I think trends are very important, especially in agriculture, because you have weather trends, you have, growing trends. So being able to capture those and display those, I think is very important, and not just collecting data.
Perfect. One thing that, just to give a bit of context on this, mostly because we know it, but maybe not everyone does. Evonics is an agriculture company oriented to agriculture and building around the hydroponics environment. Right. So basically, we are talking about growing vegetables and produce in water, right? In water tanks, sort of water. Right. So the main nutrients of the plant are actually added to this water. And that's what that's part of what you guys are monitoring.
Yeah, and that's the thing that the industry hasn't really seen yet. The nutrients are the foods for the plants. Basically, you send water over the plant roots. The roots absorb the nutrients through the water, and that's basically hydroponics. So the nutrients, they're either somebody is telling them telling the growers what kind of mixture to put in, or the bigger players, they're able to take a sample and send it to a laboratory, wait a couple weeks, and then get a result from there. But that kind of data, it's one moment in time, every couple of weeks, not very actionable on it. So we developed a system that's able to measure those nutrient concentrations in real time of the water as the plants are absorbing those nutrients. So this is a level that the farmer hasn't seen yet. And can we help them, grow more efficiently with this data? Can we help them save costs with this data? Can we help them save labor with this data?
And Leo, the farmers, are they like informed parties in the sense that do they make sense of the data by themselves? Do they understand what the data means, or do they employ someone else, or not at all, or depending on the scale, maybe?
Right. I think it's usually a head grower that manages the entire farm. And they understand what nutrient levels they have to be at for optimal growth. But they just know that level. I don't think they've ever seen the trends of, okay, if this level, if nutrient, for example, nitrogen is dropping, but my potassium is staying the same, what does that mean for the plant? What stage of growth is the plant in? It's clearly asking for more nitrogen than potassium. Now you only have to add nitrogen. So giving them another level of control over what the plant is getting.
Yeah, at the same time, because the fact that you're monitoring in real time is such a game changer, it may be that things that are not expected sort of come up, in the sense that trends that are not easily seen right now. So it would be important or interesting to also identify those.
Right. And just to add on top of that, we're testing here in a farm in Miami, and they've been around since 2017. We installed our system there, and their nutrient levels were 10x below what they should have been, which tells us hey, they're growing. Yes, they're able to grow, but they're leaving so much yield on the table. They could grow so much more, and just being able to see that right away, you're able to add the nutrients that you need to, and change the trends that have been happening. So
okay,
that's a live example.
No, there's like a very low hanging fruit in terms of immediate value that this can drive, beyond the additional, or what we might refer as like more a mid-term kind of enhancements that you could provide. But even if you don't provide those right at the start, there's still a lot of value that you can provide with what's currently there. And Lior, let me ask you this regarding data. What would you say is like the main need, or the thing that you guys are lacking today and would need to make better, in your terms or in your view?
Yeah, it's a good question. So right now we're able to collect the data and display it on a graph. That's about it, right? So I think the next step for us would be to create some type of statistic analytics for it, some type of in the future we want to add an AI and an ML model on it to give predictive analytics to predict what's going to happen, and what to look out for depending on weather patterns, environment patterns, what stage of the plant it's going to be. So really, I think another thing that would be great to see in the data is trying to find triggering events. So right now we're able to see when the farmer adds nutrients. We see a spike in the nutrients. What does that mean for the plants? Can we see what's happening with the plants based on, do they drink it all up within a day, within 2 hours? Those kind of events, we want to be able to capture and present them back to the farm. So currently we're developing a daily reports, model where every day in the morning, they'll get a report on what happened the previous day. that will have insights, and that will have, you know, trends, minimum averages, and maximums that happened the day before.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is there any indication for growth or eventually yield in the, like, is there a way for you guys to measure that, or would that depend on the farmer actually entering that data or bringing it from another system?
Right. The farmer collects that data without us, right? They have to
Sure.
know how much they're producing, you know,
Of
on
course.
every cycle, right? They have to meet their numbers. But the example, the farm in Miami, you know, their point of reference is a pound per column, which is how they have their system set up. And they were achieved, before we got there, they were achieving 60%, so 0.6 pounds a column. And after we got there, once we showed them, hey, your nutrients are lacking, you know, you need to add at least, you know, 10x what you're doing, you know, they went up to 0.9% of a pound. So they're having 0.9 pounds per column. And, you know, that's an increase of 50% in yield. And for any farm, you know, 5% increase is great.
It's a lot.
You know, so yeah, there's a lot of potential for increase in yield, and a lot of potential for decrease in cost and nutrient costs, right? Because now you don't have to guess, right? You don't have to refresh water. You can just, you know, add what's missing.
Sure. Yeah. Mostly because there are like several points where it may make sense to like go further deeper into them. One of them being growth and yield as a counterpart to what you're doing, in the sense that if you could manage to get that data into the system, then the value also will go up, because you will be able to not only you will be able to address the impact that different changes or settings in the nutrients or components level of the system would have in the end result, which is growth.
Yeah, absolutely. Collecting that's very important. And the big picture of where we're taking all this is, we want, you know, anybody, a farmer, a grower, to come up to our system and say, hey, I want a green lettuce with a little bit of purple. You know, I want this much weight, and I want this kind of texture or this kind of taste. Put in those parameters, and our system takes care of, you know, growing that and achieving that type of growth. Right. So all those data points are important for us. The yield, you know, what kind of, you know, visual properties can we collect, you know, whether that's through computer vision or infrared, you know. So there are so many different levels of, you know, things to capture within, you know, growing crops. So I think you can, the way we broke it down is water, air, and light. So right now we're focused on water, because that's where we see the biggest gap in the industry. And there's a lot of data that's not being collected. So we're able to push forward and collect those. Sure,
Absolutely. So yeah, definitely growth and yields would be something that I think would be interesting to build into the system one way or another, be it by bringing it from a third party like system, whatever the farmer uses, or by asking the farmer to enter those details in the app, or in another way. I don't know, but I see.
I was going to ask you that question, right? You know, how can we get the farmer to, you know, manually input data into our system? You know, they already have their system, or they're using an Excel spreadsheet. You know, how can we make it friendly for them to, you know, jump in and say, okay, here's my yield?
In the end, if you, of course, anything that's like a double entry kind of system where you need to enter information in two different places, it's not sustainable in the long run, because people don't really want to enter the same information in two places. So of course, there's that thing to consider. Now, if you are asking a user to interact with your application in terms of entering data, then you need to provide something in return. So you will get something by providing this energy. So by committing your energy to this, you will get something in return. If that something in return is increased growth or increased yields, it may be enough of an incentive for them to consider actually bookkeeping this into different places. Of course, that ideally we would want to bring it from another system. And if the data is complex enough or too time intensive just to get it into a system, then I'd say that that's the only option we've got, like bringing it from. But this may not be so. I mean, maybe it's a once a week kind of. I don't know how often would you harvest, or how often would you, if we were just talking yields, growth, maybe something more for a computer vision kind of approach. So
Yeah.
there may be something there to explore, but yields in the end, you need it from the user.
Right. So yield, like, some farmers, they're able to harvest once a week. If they set up everything right and they have enough plant growth, they can plant every week and harvest every week. Some take a month to harvest. So yeah, I think inputting information is not a huge ask because they have the number already. It's really being able to categorize, for example, the farm here in Miami, they're doing it in shipping containers. So they have 6 different shipping containers, so how do we keep track of, each yield for each shipping container without mixing that up? And then also thinking about, how can you ask for something and give it to them right away? Basically they input the data number and we can have a screen that pops up, hey, you increased your yield by X amount, your profit for this month is going to be X. Just kind of that idea popped in my head, was like, how can we, give back to them as well?
Yeah, that's definitely one option. In the end, every time we are dealing with data, we need to, this is in line to any training of machine learning or any other algorithm that we are using to train on a data set, which is the more information we feed to the algorithm, the more accurate the results will be. So if we are looking for a failure, then it would be important to feed, like to categorize certain failures and say, okay, this is a failure, so that the system understands what a failure is and can know it in the future. And the same goes with yields and growth. If a system, or say a neural network, understand what success looks like in terms of higher yield, then it has an easier time understanding the pattern that led to that point. So in this early stage, maybe further on, it becomes less and less important as more data is poured into the system and more outcomes are processed. But at this early point, that kind of information is very valuable. So getting it from the farmer or getting it in any other way is definitely interesting.
Yeah, we've been trying to get the data from them, and it's been a challenge, because they have so much other things going on, having them send us over a spreadsheet, but not on top of their priority. So how can, we mitigate that and make sure that, we're getting the data that we need? Because like you're saying, yields and growth, very important for us, and they're talking about it. We'll go over there and we'll talk to them, they're like, look at the color on this plant, look at the size of this plant since you guys been here, but we don't have that on something tangible, some data set. So building a system around that and into our portal, or we even offer them to do it by hand. All right, give it to us by hand. We'll come and collect it. And we'll manually input it. Yeah, but even that was a challenge to get them to do. Right, they're not doing that either. So yeah, I mean, we're dealing with kind of an industry that doesn't really love change.
It's slow to change. It's not that they don't, but agriculture in general, I don't know if it's related to them, like working around life or anything, but they are slow to adapt to change. They typically are.
Right, and I think it's because there's so much sensitivity in their crops, and the traditional agriculture, if you try something new outdoors and it fails, you lost an entire crop yield, and you have to wait till the next year, right, or the next cycle, right? So it's like prove it first. Once we get some real data, like if you can really prove that it works, then we'll start to apply it. So that's another challenge. But with the controlled environment agriculture and people growing indoors, adding more tech, we're seeing a little bit of a shift, but still it is a challenge to prove those numbers.
One thing that comes to mind too, we haven't discussed this. I will throw it out there. Just it's because you have a great plus, which is the device that you're using to get the data is yours, is from Evonics. So you have full control over what you're getting, how often you're getting the data, and everything else. And you have full control over where to get it, where to store it, and all that. The question that I have is, do you have a policy around ownership of data? And right now, have you guys been thinking about it? Where do you think that is going?
So yeah, that's a great question. We've thought about it a couple of times. We don't really have a policy in place. We're really trying to get some customer feedback on what they want. For the cannabis industry, that's a lot more important. People do treat their recipes as proprietary, right? So we want to build in a policy where, the farmer owns the data, it's their data, but we have access to it and we're allowed to infer different things from it, but keeping them anonymous, right? So that's a kind of an interesting road to go down. And I think as we get more systems involved, we'll start learning more from the clients, what they prefer and what they don't. That's a great question.
Yeah, because we've seen data vendors in the past, and in general, like legacy companies or companies that are older tend to think data as their own, even if they are vendors. We've seen data vendors actually treasure data that's their clients, but withholding it and not allowing their clients to actually go away, sort of locking them into the partnership or into the collaboration just because they were holding the data hostage, really.
Right.
So that's definitely not the road that we think makes sense. Definitely not in 2021. And definitely no way. And there's a lot to gain from collaboration, because as you mix and match data from a lot of different sources, then new insight may come up that can benefit them all. But of course, as you were saying, companies are very jealous of their property and their data, and they may or may not be like into that kind of approach.
Yeah, look, and we even built in, into our first version of our cloud portal, the farmer can go and download each day's data, right? So they have access to it, they can save it, they can pull it offline, right? So we do want to build that transparency and freedom to operate with the data. And like you're saying, the inferences we could get from, a large pool versus one individual is a game changer for the entire industry. But it really, I think it comes down to the mindset of the growers. Are they willing to work with each other, and the theory and the mindset of abundance where there's enough to go around for everybody and we can all work together? Or are they, closed-minded and, don't want to work with each other? They want to keep everything a secret. So.
Yeah. And I think that in that exact sense, I think that technology the interesting thing about technology, the technology that we are building, as all of us, is that it enables that road that may not be possible in the past. So it may not be possible at all in the past. Now that road is open, so it's enabled. The question is whether companies, people, individuals are going to take it or not, because we can actually enable it or we can block it with technology. Any of those options work. So I think it's very interesting. In all the data driven projects, there's this tension between actually bringing the data together in a way that generates something new, or keeping data like separated as it is today, let's say, like isolated, this silo.
Right. Have you seen any, data policies that kind of were kind of eye-opening, or like, wow, this can really, change the industry? Or kind of what do you prefer in terms of, who owns the data, who gets access to it?
I prefer that clients own the data that they produce. I don't think that data should be owned by anyone else, by the people that are generating it. So that for sure. But if we can find ways of, and it could be now. This is like ongoing. This is bigger than the both of us.
Yeah.
But I think that the trend is towards like giving the users the ability to actually share it, and if they do, then drive value from it. It's in the same way as we were saying before. If you're asking a user for something, you need to give them something in return. It's not just good UX, it's good human
Right.
interaction. If you are getting something, you give something in return. Otherwise, it doesn't balance out. I'm a Libra with Libra ascendancy, and I can't tolerate things that don't balance out.
Right.
But the thing is, what would the users be getting out of sharing that data, and is it going to be valuable enough for them to be interested in it? I do think that there's a lot of opportunity for change if that's the case. Uh, but we will need to find systems for the users to benefit directly from it. In case of the farmers, if a farmer is willing to not give away because you are not going to publish it, but allow you to use their data in the benefit of all the system, then are they getting the improved recipe themselves, and maybe against other farmers that are not sharing the data, which retain proprietorship of their recipes. No one can see them, but they don't benefit from the enhancements that others are getting.
Right. Yeah, it could be literally like a, I agree checkbox, hey, do you want to share it and gain benefits from it, or you don't want to share it and, be on your own in your own little area? So yeah, that'd be interesting approach to it, and hopefully it works like that. Hopefully we can find people who are willing to share and willing to contribute to a larger, mission than just what they're doing, right? What everybody else and their competitors and their rivals are doing as well. Because if everybody grows, we all grow, and the community survives.
Yeah.
So I do have another question. Data. So we're actually having an issue right now where our portal is overloaded with data. Basically, we cannot load data greater than 2 weeks, right? So our developers are changing, the processor, giving us more RAM. This is diving into the details a little bit. But how would you approach, expecting, how much data you're going to be processing, and what kind of, equipment you need to do it in an efficient manner?
Yeah, the process is the first thing to tackle, even before equipment, because equipment doesn't always actually, if the process is not good to begin with, it doesn't matter how much hardware you toss into it, it will never be enough. It will always fall short, and the cost will go through the roof. So we always check the processes first when we are expecting like large volumes of data, like handling large volumes of data. Then there are a couple of things to consider in both sides of the equation, because you have the server on one hand, so the server needs to be able to handle those queries. It needs to be able to retrieve the data from the databases in time, make those DTOs or whatever objects it's forwarding to the client, and make that very fast so that it can accept other connections. And then you have the client, which you don't control. your client is rendering on your client's on the user web browser or whatever technology you are using. Let's assume a browser just for simplicity. And depending on how much data you're throwing to the web client, things may or may not explode. And it's been heard that, I mean, such a large amount of data just can't be rendered by the browser. It doesn't. So there are a lot of sides to this. One thing that we've done in the past is, of course, aggregation. We don't typically pass raw data to clients because raw data is crazy. I don't know what sample are you doing, but it's maybe one measure a second or one measure every 5 seconds. So it adds up like impossibly quick. So we definitely aggregate, and we go as far as, I mean, if the user is seeing data for, I don't know, a month or 2 months, the aggregation may be in the hour range. I don't know. So you are not putting millions of registers, but something in the thousands in terms of data points that you're feeding the browser. Now, another thing to consider is, well, the package itself is also like you would typically be using HTTPS, but there may be compression algorithms. I know that we've been using some compression algorithms for the packages lately that shrink down the size. Otherwise, again, we were maybe in the megabytes range, maybe 100 megabytes, I don't know. And it also is very taxing on connection, especially on mobile devices. So compression is also something to consider. And then there's drawing. Drawing those data points is also, how are you guys drawing them? Do you have charts or any other way of drawing those data points right now?
So right now they're charts. Basically, you select a date range, and it'll show you the chart for that date range. And then you can, zoom into, specific minute, hour. But the data it doesn't, I guess, aggregate like you're saying. I like the idea of, if you're going to choose 3 months, it's going to show you an hourly based data, but still having the ability, if you zoom into a day, you can see the minute by minute. So that's probably something that will be next in our portal.
And Lior, are you using a chart that you built yourselves, or are you using a third party like a library or something?
I think they're using a library.
Okay, because even though charts are very complex and it's always okay to go with a library, if the app is very data intensive and it requires like a lot of responsiveness there, it might make sense at one point to build something in-house to handle data. That is just like a canvas that you can draw with OpenGL or something, hardware accelerated, and that's built specifically to around the use case. I think that Paula is asking a question there. Can you give us what kind of resources does it take to incorporate machine learning into the mix, and where would that fit into the engineering process? I think we both can respond that. Do you want to start?
Yeah, no, you go ahead. This is your area.
Okay. I would always wait to start talking about machine learning, mostly because the first thing that we need is data. If we don't have data, there's no point in building machine learning about it. It is a buzzword, and in the end, it's just math. It's not magic, but it needs data, and it doesn't solve things by itself. It needs to be like, you need something that's already providing value before you bring in machine learning into the mix. So it wouldn't be the first thing in my mind. I would always prefer for the application to be valuable in itself, and then add machine learning to it. Like it's icing in the on the cake rather than the cake itself for me.
Right, I totally agree with that. Right, our first goal is to collect. Like we're throwing in, air quality sensors that the customer didn't even think about or ask for, just so we can get more data. Right, because those are valuable data points as well. And really, the way kind of we're thinking about it is collect as much as we can, do kind of a statistical basic model, some basic math to it, and kind of get some interpretations, some value for the customer. And then further along, start training in ML once we have, those results, right? This data looks like a win. This one looks like a failure. So like you're saying, the machine learning has to learn what's right and what's wrong, right? And you need data for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus that you need always need like double the data, because you are Monica is saying that feel free to drop any questions. I encourage that too, mostly because this process is about the questions. Really, there are no. I'm less concerned about answers at this stage than I am with questions.
Right.
Like the more questions we have, it's always the better. If we can, and the more perspectives we have on a situation or in a problem, the more interesting the results are. So yeah, I agree with Monica there. We were, Karen is asking, what are the key data points you use to capture effective nutrient monitoring? Okay, if
So
what
what
would
do
you
you mean
say
by
those data points
effective?
are?
Effective is in the machine is working, or what kind of data points are we collecting, just in general?
Well, the question that I would do there with that input would be, sorry, Karen, is that is out of the data points that you're gathering, what are success scenarios that you would label? How would you label a desirable scenario? Is it like not falling short on any nutrient, not going above a certain threshold?
Right. So right now we are in a state. Our product is in a stage of just monitoring, and we are developing an actionable and event handling system. Right. So right now we're capturing, the events that we're seeing spikes in nutrients. Right. When the grower adds nutrients, those are important to us. Tells us what time of day they're feeding, and then we can also watch that nutrient level slowly decrease over time. Right. So now we could tell them, hey, you added nutrients, at 12 p.m., at around 3 p.m., you're going to need to add again to keep that nutrient level at where it should be, right? Because you don't want it to drop down and then add again. You want it to keep it steady so the plant always has access to it. So our next stage, when our event handling system, basically injecting nutrients into the system, our key points are going to be,
Stability.
how close do we keep it to? We're in 5-10% of where we need to be. And that's very important. And that was what we truly believe is going to, increase your yield and really change the growing as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're after is like a data stream that's stable. Is it's a good behavior. If you have too highs or too lows or a lot of spikes in your data, then you have places to like things to enhance. The good thing is that this is in the hands of the farmer or whoever is throwing the nutrients in the water, because it boils down to that. You can stabilize that flow, but yourself. There's a way to do it. You're not depending on a natural process, let's say.
Right. You got to keep adding, right? You got to keep giving it food.
I think it's we are 3 minutes to 1 p.m., so we might be running short on time. I don't know, Monica, is this being wrapped up? Do we have like 2 more days? What does it look like?
Well, I mean, now, I mean, we can open it up to the audience to see if they have any additional questions. Nico, it sounded like you covered mostly everything. So yeah, if you want to just close out the room, or Lior, if you have anything to add as well, feel free to do that. But yeah, at 12 we'll, or I'm sorry, at 1 we'll wrap it up as well.
Yeah, so any last questions?
I have a lot. I mean, this process is just starting out, and it usually takes time, and it requires like a back and forth. Of course, I always like to wrap this sessions or these stages at least with some actionable items or things that I think would be the next logical step. So from what we've been discussing today, like handling data is definitely one aspect in terms of technically handling data in an efficient way, both server side and on the client. So that's definitely an area that can benefit from improvement. There's yield and growth data and how to collect that in order to better train an algorithm or better understand desirable outcomes. So a way of doing that would also be an actionable item for me. I don't know if you think if you heard another, or how did you see
Yeah,
that?
I think those two nailed it. Really being able to handle the data, like you're saying, we're having trouble with loading a month of data when we want to be able to see 3 months of data at a time, and also really thinking down the road of our product development into the ML field, where we need to collect those wins and those failures. What a success looks like. So being able to incorporate that, whether it's, at first by hand, calling the grower and being, hey, what was your yield like? Or, building in, something that's very user friendly for them, where they could just put in one number and call it a day. So those two things I think will be very important.
Yeah, and I think it's okay early on in a startup to make processes that don't scale well.
Right.
I'm all for that. I mean, it's okay if it doesn't scale. It may not be necessary further down the road, and if it is, we will find a way to scale it.
We'll find a way to scale it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. We're right at time. I appreciate you, Nico and Lior, and I hope you guys can continue this conversation and help each other out. But if anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out. My name is Monica Rojas. I am with Tech Hub South Florida. I will be sending out a recording of this discussion, so feel free to review it, to share it to any founders or anybody that might find this valuable, or feel free to share it online. That's what we're here for. So happy Friday, everybody. Have an amazing weekend. Thank you, Nico. Thank you, Lior.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you all of you for being
opportunity.
here. Thank you, Lior. It's been great.
Bye, everybody.
You too. I'll talk to you soon.
We will continue this conversation for sure. Goodbye, everyone.
Yeah, we have to. Have a good day.